The Vampire of Verdun. Soldier Stories of Nighttime Hauntings. Have you ever heard of a soldier's story that sends chills down your spine, a tale where the line between reality and something otherworldly blurs? Imagine, just for a second, that you're in the middle of war. The ground shakes beneath you, the air thick with smoke and the stench of fear. Everything around you is chaos. But then, there's something else. Something you can't explain. Something that shouldn't be there. It's the night of a brutal battle, one of many in the bloodied history of Verdun. The year is 1916, and the soldiers are scattered across a battlefield soaked in the remnants of war. But as the moon hangs high, a strange, eerie stillness takes over, almost as if the very air holds its breath. The soldiers, exhausted and battle-worn, begin to hear it. At first it's faint, the distant sound of footsteps, too heavy to be from the living, echoing across the barren land. And then it happens. A low, guttural whispering. They try to ignore it, telling themselves it's the wind, the groan of the earth itself. But the whispers grow louder. They turn around, half expecting to see a fellow soldier, but nothing. Just the ruins of war. The air grows colder, and then a shape moves in the distance. At first it's hard to make out, like a shadow that doesn't belong. It flickers in and out of sight, vanishing and reappearing as though it's not entirely bound by the laws of reality. The men freeze, staring, trying to comprehend what they're seeing. Some of the men speak in hushed voices. "Did you see that?" But no one answers. The ground feels wrong. Their feet feel heavy, like the weight of the earth itself is pushing them down. They begin to panic, confusion spreading faster than fear. Was it a hallucination? Were they just too tired? Or was there something more? Suddenly, one soldier points. "Look, over there!" A figure, draped in tattered clothing, moves slowly towards them, the faint outline of what could be a soldier or something else. Their hearts race. Could it be a fellow soldier lost and wandering the field? But no. This figure doesn't look human. The soldiers, frozen in place, can't explain what they're seeing. One by one, they realize it's not just a figure. It's an entire army, ghostly figures, warriors from another time, marching silently across the battlefield. They are the spirits of the fallen soldiers of Verdun, forever trapped in the horror of their deaths. Their eyes hollow, their faces shrouded in mist, they move with a purpose only they understand. But here's the thing. No one could have imagined what would come next. These weren't just ghostly apparitions. They were something else entirely, something far darker, far more insidious. And the strangest part? The soldiers who witnessed this, none of them spoke of it again. Silence, complete silence. The only survivor, the man who lived to tell the tale, swore an oath to never speak of it. But that oath is shattered tonight, as we unravel what truly happened on that haunted night. Do spirits from the past truly return? Or is there something far more sinister at play here? Join me as we attempt to uncover the truth that has been buried for over a century. Keep watching, because what you are about to hear might just change everything you thought you knew about the supernatural. The evidence is chilling, and the soldier who survived, well, let's just say he has a story that'll make you question everything. But first, a question to you. Have you ever experienced something you couldn't explain? Something that still haunts you? Leave a comment, and let's dive deeper into this mystery together. And if you're as curious as I am, make sure you don't miss the next part of this journey, where we uncover strange signs that will leave you wondering, what if we're not alone? Don't forget to like this video if this story gave you goosebumps. Now, let's continue. The moon hangs heavy over the scarred battlefield of Verdun, casting long shadows over the jagged remains of shattered stone and metal. The wind, still carrying the faintest traces of gunpowder, now whispers through the trees. But it's not just the wind. No, something else stirs beneath the dark sky, a presence that can't be explained. It starts small, almost insignificant. At first, the soldiers ignore it, a flicker of movement from the corner of their eyes, shadows stretching unnaturally. They chalk it up to fatigue, a trick of the mind after days of battle. But then it happens again, and again. Each time it's more undeniable. The first sign is the lights, strange, pulsating orbs of light that appear in the distance. Bright blue, almost ghostly, they float silently across the field like will-o'-the-wisps, their glow reflecting off the remnants of old trenches and shattered artillery. They drift in and out of sight, their movements too deliberate, too unnatural to be mere reflections of the moon. The men stop, frozen, eyes fixed on these flickering lights. "Anyone else see that?" one soldier asks, voice barely a whisper. But no one answers. How could they? No one could explain it. The lights seem to move with purpose, darting from one position to another, as if something or someone is leading them. They hover just above the ground, never rising too high, always staying low to the earth. As the lights shift across the battlefield, they cast eerie, elongated shadows that stretch unnaturally far across the landscape. And then, the whispers begin again. But this time they're louder, more distinct. They come from all directions, a soft murmur like voices that were buried long ago beneath the earth, trying to find their way back to the surface. At first, the soldiers try to shake it off, convincing themselves it's just the wind or the echoes of distant gunfire. But as the hours stretch on, the whispers grow clearer. They're not random noises. No, they sound like words spoken in an ancient tongue, almost unintelligible but unmistakably human. A soldier's hands tremble as he raises his rifle, scanning the dark horizon. But there's nothing, just the silence and the whispers. The closer the soldiers listen, the more the hairs on the back of their necks stand on end. "I can hear them," one soldier murmurs. "They're saying, 'Come.' 'Who's there?' Another calls into the darkness, but his voice is swallowed by the endless night. The tension in the air thickens, and for the first time, fear grips their hearts. The strange occurrences don't stop there. As the soldiers begin to move deeper into the field, exploring the areas where the lights had been seen, something else catches their attention. A dark shape appears, emerging from the fog like a shadow given form. It's not a man, at least not one that's alive. At first they think it's another soldier, perhaps someone who got separated in the chaos of the battle. But as they get closer, the figure doesn't move like a living person. There's an unnatural stillness to its form. It stands perfectly still, as if waiting, as if it knows they are coming. "Do you see that?" one soldier asks, his voice barely audible. "Yes," another whispers, gripping his rifle tighter. "But it doesn't look right." The figure remains unmoving, its outline hazy in the mist. It's a soldier, that much is certain, but the uniform is tattered, the face hidden in shadow, and the figure appears to flicker in and out of existence, like a bad film reel skipping frames. They hesitate. Some of the men take a step forward, others stay frozen, unsure. The silence is deafening, only broken by the pounding of their hearts. The figure doesn't speak, doesn't move. It's as if it's waiting for them to make the first move. "I think we should go back," one soldier suggests, a hint of panic in his voice. But it's too late. The figure suddenly shifts, taking a step forward. The movement is jerky, unnatural, like a puppet on strings. The soldiers stumble back, their feet heavy in the muck. A chill runs down their spines, their breaths coming out in quick bursts, visible in the cold air. And then the whispers grow louder again. They are unmistakable now, clear as day, and they are no longer distant. They are all around them. The soldiers can hear them, feel them. 1,000 voices reaching out from the past, begging to be heard. One soldier, the bravest among them, steps forward, his heart racing. "Who are you?" he calls out, his voice trembling. "What do you want?" But the figure doesn't respond. Instead, it begins to fade. Not disappear. Fade. Slowly, the outline becomes more translucent, and the air around it seems to shimmer with an unnatural energy. Just when it seems like it's gone completely, the ground beneath their feet shifts, as if the earth itself is trembling in response. The soldiers look down. It's not the wind this time. It's something deeper, more unsettling. The ground is moving, shifting in a way they can't understand. Like something is crawling beneath their feet. And then, silence. It's the kind of silence that presses against you, fills your lungs, makes it hard to breathe. But it's not just the absence of sound, it's the weight of something that shouldn't be. The men, still shaken, look around. They feel it now, their hearts pounding in their chests. The realization slowly sets in. They are not alone. Something, or someone, is watching them. And worse, it feels like the soldiers are no longer in control of their own fate. What happened on that battlefield is beyond reason. The strange lights, the unexplainable figure, the whispering voices, all of it points to something far more sinister. But there's one question they can't answer. What does it all mean? This is only the beginning. And if you think that was strange, wait until you hear what happens next. Something darker is unfolding in the shadows. But don't just take my word for it. Let's dive deeper into the mystery, shall we? Before we continue, leave a comment below. What do you think those strange lights and whispers really were? Were they a sign of something supernatural, or just a figment of a war-torn mind? We'll get to the truth in the next part. And don't forget to like this video if you're hooked on this haunting tale. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. The eerie stillness of Verdun's haunted battlefield lingers in the air like a thick fog, refusing to leave. The strange lights, the whispering voices, and the shadowy figures, they're no longer just phenomena to be feared. They are memories. Memories etched into the minds of the soldiers who witnessed them. But there's one soldier, one lone survivor, whose silence has held more weight than the words of all the others combined. His name? Sergeant Henri Delacroix. Henri was the one who lived, the one who witnessed it all but remained silent for decades, carrying the weight of the strange events as though they were a secret only he understood. But tonight, that silence is shattered. It's time to tell the world what really happened. Henri's hands tremble slightly as he begins his story. It's not fear. It's something else, something deeper, something born from the knowledge of what he has seen, what he has lived through. The years have not dulled the memory, nor have they made it any easier to speak about. He sits in front of us now, his weathered face creased with the lines of time and hardship, his eyes distant, as if he can still see those haunting lights flicker in the distance. He takes a deep breath and begins. It started that night, Henri says softly, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 memories. We were in the trenches, just like any other night. The war had dragged on for what felt like an eternity. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and death. I remember thinking, it can't get worse than this. But then, the whispers started. He pauses and the room grows heavy. We can almost hear those whispers now, soft and unintelligible, just as he describes. I thought it was just the wind at first. That's what I told myself. But then, the lights. They weren't normal. I've seen plenty of flares, but these were different. Henri leans forward, his eyes widening as if the memory is alive again. They weren't floating in the sky like flares. They were on the ground, moving across the field like they were searching for something. But what could they be searching for? We were in the middle of a war, surrounded by nothing but death and despair. There was no explanation. But they were there, and they weren't alone. The words hang in the air, and we all lean in, eager to understand what happened next. Henri looks at the floor, as though recalling the exact moment. I should have known something was wrong when one of the men, Corporal Lefebvre, disappeared, vanished into thin air. One moment he was standing next to me, the next, gone. No noise, no struggle, just gone. A chill runs down our spines. Henri's eyes are hollow, his expression haunted, as though he's reliving those moments right now. I never found out what happened to Lefebvre. No one ever saw him again. I didn't talk about it at the time. Who would believe me? But that night, it was the beginning of something that I don't think anyone was prepared for. He swallows hard, and for a moment, it's as if he's fighting to keep himself from breaking. The men were starting to panic. That's when we saw them. The figures. Ghostly soldiers just like us. They were marching across the battlefield, their faces obscured by shadow, their uniforms shredded by time, as if they'd been walking through hell for years. But they weren't ghosts. They couldn't have been. Not in the way we understand. They were something else. Something older. Henri shudders, the weight of those words sinking in. It was like they were alive, but not. They moved like they were made of smoke, as if they existed between worlds, not quite dead, not quite alive. And they weren't alone. They had something with them. Something worse. He falls silent for a moment, the memory of that night too much to bear. We were stuck there, surrounded by them. The ground was shaking beneath us, the air thick with fear, and then, that's when we heard it. The sound of a voice, not from the living, but from somewhere deeper. It spoke to us. The dead never leave. A shiver runs down our spines, as if the very words themselves were meant to be a warning. Henri looks up at us, his gaze intense. I know what you're thinking. Is he crazy? But let me tell you this. If you had been there, if you had seen what I saw, you'd understand. I tried to tell the others. We tried to fight. We tried to make sense of it all, but nothing made sense. Not anymore. He wipes a tear from his eye, a tear that feels like it's been buried for years. We were too far gone. The battlefield wasn't ours anymore. And the worst part? There was no escape. Not for me, not for anyone. They were all around us, watching, waiting. Henri's voice trembles as he continues, the weight of his story pressing down on him like a physical burden. I don't know why I'm the only one who made it out that night. Maybe it's because I saw them. Maybe I was meant to carry their message. But I swore to myself that I would never speak of it again. But I can't keep quiet anymore. It's time. The world needs to know the truth. The things we saw, they were not of this world. And they're still out there. Waiting. Henri falls silent, and we can feel the gravity of his words settle in. The room is thick with tension, each word hanging in the air, heavy with meaning. His story isn't over yet, not by a long shot. There are pieces to this puzzle that are still missing, secrets that only the battlefield can reveal. But one thing is clear. Henri has seen something. Something that defies logic, that defies everything we know. And as he sits before us, we can't help but wonder, what else does he know? The night is still young, and the story is just beginning. Now, it's your turn. What do you think of Henri's tale? Do you believe him? Or is there more to this story than meets the eye? Let's continue the investigation in the next part, where the mystery deepens and the strange events grow ever more terrifying. But don't forget, keep your eyes open because what comes next will make you question everything. Henri's voice still echoes in the air, the weight of his words hanging over us like a heavy, oppressive fog. The battlefield of Verdun, once a place of unimaginable horrors, now feels like a cursed land, shrouded in an eternal nightmare. But just as Henri's story begins to settle in, something else stirs in the shadows. The strange events are far from over. They've only just begun. Days pass, but the soldiers still feel the strange presence lingering in the air. The whispers never truly fade, only growing louder, more insistent. At night, the flickering lights still dance across the battlefield like some twisted, ghostly waltz, mocking the soldiers' desperate attempts to ignore them. And the shadows? They move, they stretch, they don't belong. One night, as the men gather around a fire to share what little warmth they can find, an odd feeling settles in the pit of their stomachs. It's as if the air itself is thick with anticipation, like something is about to happen. But what? One of the men, Private Lucian, suddenly stands up. His face is pale, his eyes wide with fear. He points, trembling, at the dark horizon. "I saw it," he whispers, voice barely audible over the crackling of the fire. "I saw something. Out there." The others turn to look. They can't see anything at first, just the endless stretch of the desolate battlefield, bathed in the cold light of the moon. But Lucian's face is taut with terror, his body rigid as if he's trying to fight off a nightmare that's come to life. "It was a figure," he stammers. "A man, or something that looked like one. But he was wrong. He didn't belong here. He was moving in ways no human could move, like he was floating." A chill runs through the group, but before anyone can respond, the whispers return. This time, they are clearer, more insistent. The soldiers' eyes dart around, searching for the source. It's not the wind, not the rustle of leaves. This is something else. A sound that cuts through the air like a blade, chilling their bones. And then, just as suddenly, there's a flash of light. Bright, blinding, and almost otherworldly in its intensity. It comes from the distance, moving across the field in the same erratic, unpredictable pattern as the lights they've seen before. But this time, it's different. This time, it's followed by something far more sinister. A shadow. No, not just a shadow. A creature. It emerges from the fog like a specter, towering and grotesque, its body twisted and misshapen. Its face is a blur of features, flesh pulled taut over an unnatural skull, eyes glowing with an unearthly light. Its movements are jerky, erratic, as if it's not quite real, as if it doesn't fully exist in this world. The soldiers freeze. The air grows cold, the temperature dropping to a near-frozen chill. They can't move, can't speak. Their minds race, trying to comprehend what they're seeing, but nothing makes sense. It's not human. It's something worse. One soldier, Sergeant Dupont, shakily raises his rifle, but his hands tremble too violently to hold it steady. "Shoot it!" he commands, but his voice cracks with fear. "Shoot it now!" But they don't. They can't. The creature doesn't move toward them. No, it hovers, its presence looming over them like a dark cloud. It doesn't attack. It doesn't make a sound. It simply exists, suspended between worlds, watching them with those glowing eyes. The men try to back away, but their feet feel like lead. It's as if the ground itself has claimed them, unwilling to let them escape. The creature seems to sense their fear, and in response, it starts to shift, its form becoming more solid, more defined. But even as it becomes more real, it's still wrong. Its shape distorts, flickers, and then stretches in unnatural ways, as though it's breaking the rules of reality itself. Suddenly, there's a scream. Lucian, the one who first saw the figure, collapses to the ground, clutching his head as though in agony. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" he shouts, his voice panicked, desperate. His fingers claw at his face, as though trying to tear away the vision. "It's in my head! It's in my head!" The other soldiers rush to his side, trying to calm him, but the creature still hovers nearby, its eyes burning into their souls. It's not attacking, but its presence alone is enough to drive them to the edge of madness. The whispers, once just a distant murmur, now crescendo in their ears. Louder, more frenzied. It's as though the very air around them is filled with voices. Voices of the dead, the tortured souls who have never left this place. Lucian's body convulses, and his eyes roll back in his head. I see them. I see them all. His voice is no longer his own, but something else, a voice from another time, another world. The creature flickers again, its form warping like a mirage, then vanishes into the fog just as suddenly as it appeared. The soldiers are left in stunned silence, the echoes of Lucian's screams still ringing in their ears. Is he dead?" one soldier asks, his voice shaky. Henri steps forward, eyes scanning the dark horizon. His face is grim, his expression unreadable. "He's not dead," he says quietly, "but he's lost. He's been marked." The soldiers can't understand. What does Henri mean by marked? What does it mean to be touched by whatever they just saw? Henri's face tightens, and his voice drops to a whisper. "This is what I was talking about. It's not just the lights or the whispers. It's something more, something ancient." The tension in the air thickens as the soldiers realize that whatever they are facing is far beyond their understanding. The creature, the whispers, the lights, they're all connected, but how? What is it they are dealing with? And more importantly, how can they stop it before it consumes them all? There are no answers, only more questions. And one thing is certain. Things are only going to get worse. The darkness that surrounds them is no longer just a physical presence. It's closing in, suffocating them, wrapping its fingers around their very souls. And with every passing moment, the line between the living and the dead blurs even more. But the worst part? No one knows if they can survive the next night. If you think this is terrifying, just wait. Because the next part will take us even deeper into the unknown. You don't want to miss what's coming next. The battlefield of Verdun, a place that should have been silent by now, pulses with an energy that can't be explained by ordinary means. The soldiers stand frozen, their minds racing, hearts pounding as they try to make sense of the horrors they've just witnessed. But the truth is, what they've seen, the shadows, the creatures, the voices from beyond, doesn't belong to the present. No, this is not just a matter of a cursed land or a collective madness. This is something much deeper, tied to the very fabric of history itself. Henri Delacroix, the lone survivor who has lived through it all, knows this better than anyone. But for years, he kept the truth hidden. Not just from his fellow soldiers, but from the world. It was a secret too dark, too terrifying to share. But now, in the dead of night, with the spirits of Verdun creeping around them, Henri's resolve begins to crack. "The lights," Henri murmurs, his voice distant, as if the words are not coming from him but from somewhere else, somewhere buried deep within his soul. "The whispers, the shadows, they've always been there. But it's not just this war, no, it's been happening for centuries." The soldiers gather around him, their eyes wide with confusion and disbelief. They're desperate for answers. Any answers. But Henri's story is not an easy one to hear. It's a story that will tie their fates to something far older than the horrors of the Great War. He looks around the group, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and sorrow. There's something you need to know, something I should have told you a long time ago. His voice falters. I don't know how to explain this, but the battlefield, this place, it wasn't always like this. It wasn't always haunted. The men exchange puzzled glances. What could Henri be talking about? Of course, Verdun has always been a place of unimaginable loss. But could it really be cursed? Could there be something more to it than just the sheer brutality of war? Henri takes a deep breath, steadying himself. In the days before this war, before all of us were sent here to fight, there were others, soldiers just like us. But they weren't fighting the same battles. They were fighting something else. He pauses, his face grim. There was a ritual, an ancient ceremony, one that has been lost to time, but not to the earth. It was buried beneath the soil, hidden in the ruins of old fortifications. The soldiers stare at him, confusion mixed with a growing sense of dread. A ritual? What kind of ritual? One soldier asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Henri's gaze darkens. It was meant to call forth something that should never have been called. The spirits, the entities that walked this land before any of us were born. They were bound here, kept hidden beneath the earth. But the ritual disturbed them. It unleashed them. The air grows cold, and for a moment the fire in front of them flickers violently, casting strange, elongated shadows on the walls of the ruined trench. Henri lowers his voice. The soldiers who fought here back then, they didn't just face enemy forces. They faced them. The ones who had been sealed away. The ones whose power had been trapped beneath the earth for centuries. The men look at each other, fear starting to creep into their hearts. The war wasn't just a war. It was the battleground for something far older and far more powerful. Something that had been waiting for the right moment to break free. And now, it seemed that moment had arrived. Henri's eyes glaze over as he recalls the past. The soldiers who fought here, long before us, didn't understand what they had done. They were part of a larger plan. A plan that brought them to this land to awaken something that should never have been disturbed. And when the ritual was completed, when the earth was split open, the veil between the worlds grew thin. Too thin. The ground beneath their feet shifts, and the men glance nervously at one another, a cold sweat forming on their brows. Henri shakes his head slowly. It's not just us, not just the war that's causing the disturbances. The spirits, the ones who roam the battlefield, they were awakened by that ancient ritual, and it's not over. It never was. The soldiers listen in stunned silence. The truth, though hard to believe, seems more plausible with each passing moment. The haunting figures, the strange lights, the twisted creatures they've encountered, they are not the result of a curse or madness. They are the result of an ancient wrong, one that continues to reverberate through time, reaching into their lives in ways they never could have imagined. But Henri's tale is not yet finished. The most chilling part, the part he's been avoiding, hangs in the air like a storm ready to break. They were never meant to stay here, Henri continues, his voice trembling with an emotion he can't quite hide. But they are bound to this place, and that's why we're all here, why we're trapped in this nightmare. He stands up, his hands shaking as if the very words he speaks are unraveling something within him. You don't realize it yet, but we are part of the ritual. We were all drawn here for a reason, and now we are part of what happens next. The veil between the living and the dead is thinning. Every day the boundary weakens, and when it's gone, when it finally disappears, what we've seen so far will be nothing compared to what's coming. The room falls silent. No one speaks. There's no need to. The implications of Henri's words hang in the air like a specter, impossible to shake. It's clear now. This battle, this war, is not just about survival against human enemies. It's about survival against something far older, far darker, something that has been lurking beneath the surface for centuries, and now it's clawing its way back to the surface, using the war as a means to break free. But what will happen when it finally escapes? The soldiers know one thing for certain. They are not just fighting for their lives anymore. They are fighting to keep the door to the other side shut. But can they hold it closed long enough? Or are they already too late? Henri's words resonate in the silence. He's given them the truth. But now they must face the consequences of knowing it. They've seen what happens when the veil weakens. The question now is, what will they do with that knowledge? The mysteries are far from over, and the next chapter of this cursed story is about to unfold. But as always, the past holds more secrets than the present is willing to acknowledge. What lies ahead, and more importantly, who or what is waiting to return? Stay with me as we continue our search for the truth in the next part. It will only get darker from here. The revelation from Henri echoes in the minds of the soldiers like a drumbeat, steady and unrelenting. The battlefield of Verdun is no longer just a place of physical conflict. No, it has become something more. The dead are walking, and the line between life and death is no longer as clear as it once was. The truth, though horrifying, is undeniable. There is something ancient beneath the soil, and it has been awakened. As Henri's words sink in, the men find themselves at a crossroads, paralyzed by the overwhelming weight of the knowledge they now carry. Their breaths come in sharp, nervous gasps as they try to make sense of what they've learned. But the darkness of the battlefield refuses to let them rest. The days that follow are a blur. The soldiers can feel it, the heavy presence that presses against their chests, suffocating them. Every night the whispers grow louder, the lights flicker more erratically, and the shadows grow longer, stretching across the barren land like dark fingers reaching out for them. One evening, as the men sit huddled together around a fire, trying to steal a few moments of comfort amidst the chaos, the ground beneath them shifts. It's subtle at first, a tremor they think they can ignore. But then, the air changes. It thickens, becoming heavy with an almost palpable tension. And that's when they hear it. A scream. A blood-curdling scream that rips through the stillness of the night. It's not the cry of a soldier, not a desperate shout for help. It's something worse, something that echoes through their bones, a scream filled with pain, anguish, and terror. The men freeze, their hearts skipping in their chests. They exchange frightened glances, none of them willing to voice the question that hangs in the air. What if it's one of us? Henri stands first, his face pale and drawn, the weight of what he's learned pressing down on him. "It's them," he whispers, his voice strained. "They've found us again." And so they go. They grab their rifles, their flashlights trembling in their hands, and move toward the sound of the scream, each step heavier than the last. The whispers intensify, swirling around them like an unseen storm, and the air grows colder, as though the very temperature is being sucked away by some unseen force. The night feels alive. Not in the way a normal night does, with the rustle of leaves and the chirp of distant insects, but alive in a way that makes their skin crawl. The battlefield, once just an expanse of dirt and broken earth, now feels like a living, breathing entity, waiting, watching. As they move further into the fog, the world around them distorts. The shapes of the trenches and debris become warped, stretched, as if they are looking at it through a thick, opaque glass. The soldiers' footsteps sound muffled, distant, like they're walking through a dream. Then, suddenly, a figure appears before them. At first, they think it's one of their own, a soldier who has wandered off or become disoriented in the haze. But the moment they step closer, they realize with a shock of terror that this is no man. The figure is tall, impossibly tall, standing nearly 8 feet high. Its body is twisted, its limbs elongated, its skin a sickly gray hue that seems to shimmer unnaturally in the dim light. The creature's face is obscured by shadows, but its eyes, they are glowing, burning with an intense, unnatural light that sends an icy chill down their spines. It doesn't move at first, just stands there, watching them. But then, as if it's been waiting for this moment, it begins to sway, its head tilting in a grotesque manner, as though it's studying them, considering them like prey. "Do you see it?" Private Boucher whispers, his voice barely a breath. "Don't look away," Henri murmurs, his own voice tight with fear. "Whatever you do, don't look away." The creature's mouth opens slowly, impossibly wide. It's a soundless motion, but somehow the soldiers feel it, feel the air shift, feel the weight of the silence pressing in on them. And then, from the depths of that darkness, a voice emerges, a voice not of this world. "You are here," it says, its tone cold, like the whisper of a dead man's breath. "You are part of what comes next." The words strike the soldiers like a blow to the chest, knocking the breath out of them. Panic rises in their throats, but they can't move. Their bodies feel frozen, as if some unseen force has paralyzed them in place. The creature sways again, and they feel it, an overwhelming sensation of doom settling over them. They can't look away. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the creature vanishes into the fog, fading into the night like a nightmare slipping away at dawn. The soldiers stand in stunned silence, their minds racing, struggling to comprehend what they've just witnessed. But they all know one thing. That was not a man. That was not human. Henri's face is pale, his eyes wide with the same terror that grips the soldiers around him. He is breathing heavily, his voice strained as he speaks again. "They're not just watching us anymore," he says, his voice hoarse. "They're coming for us." The words hang in the air, impossible to ignore. The soldiers know it now. They are no longer safe. The creatures they've been seeing, the whispers they've been hearing, the lights they've been following, they are not random. This is not just some haunting from the past. Number this is a warning that something much darker is on the way. And this time it's not just the spirits of the dead they are facing. It's the very thing that was unleashed by the ancient ritual Henri spoke of, the thing that was meant to be buried forever beneath the earth. And now, it's free. What can they do against an enemy like that? How can they fight something that isn't even bound by the laws of nature? The soldiers return to camp, their minds reeling, their bodies weary from the terror they've just experienced. But they know deep down that there is no escaping this. The battlefield, once just a place of war, has now become a battleground for something far worse. And the worst part? It's only just begun. The air in the trenches is thick with uncertainty as the soldiers return to their camp, haunted by what they've just encountered. The fog rolls in heavier than before, a shroud of cold mist that seems to wrap itself around their thoughts, distorting everything. Their minds are fractured, trying to piece together the impossible visions they've seen, the towering creature, the whispers, the lights. Nothing about it makes sense. Nothing can explain what they've witnessed. And yet every passing moment feels more like a step deeper into madness. But there's something else, a feeling that they're being watched, that they've crossed a line they cannot return from, as if some invisible force has marked them, drawing them further into its web. Henri, the one who's seen more than anyone else, stands at the center of the camp. His face is drawn tight with the weight of everything he knows. He holds something in his hands, an object wrapped in cloth, something that he's kept hidden for years. The rest of the men gather around him, their eyes filled with a mix of fear and curiosity. They need answers. They need anything that can explain what's happening, what they're facing. Henri's fingers tremble as he slowly unwraps the cloth. Inside is a small, ancient-looking metal object, worn smooth by time, etched with symbols the soldiers can't decipher. The object glimmers in the dim firelight, almost as if it's alive. "This," Henri says quietly, his voice carrying a weight of knowledge that none of the others possess. "This is what they left behind." The soldiers lean in closer, their breath shallow, as Henri holds up the object for them to see. It's a medallion, shaped like an old coin, but with intricate carvings that look older than the war itself. The symbols are unfamiliar, too ancient, too foreign to have any immediate meaning. They've never seen anything like it before. "I found this in the ruins of an old fort," Henri continues, "when I was first sent here before the fighting began. I didn't understand what it was then. But after everything that's happened, I know what it is, or at least I have an idea." He pauses for a moment, his eyes distant as he stares at the medallion. The firelight flickers, casting eerie shadows on his face, making him look even older than he is. "It's a key," Henri says, his voice barely more than a whisper. "A key to something. A door, but not just any door. This door opens to a place between the living and the dead." The soldiers exchange nervous glances. It sounds insane, doesn't it? A key to another world? To a place between the realms of the living and the dead? But there's something in Henri's voice, a conviction in his words, that makes them pause. After everything they've seen, after everything that's happened, can they afford to dismiss him? "This was what those soldiers, the ones before us, used," Henri says, almost to himself. "They used it to open the door, to call them." The men stare at the medallion, and for the first time, they begin to understand. The creatures they've encountered, the shadows that stretch and twist, the glowing eyes that pierce through the dark, are not random. They are the result of something more deliberate, something intentional, something that has been waiting for centuries to break free. "But why?" one of the soldiers asks, his voice trembling. "Why did they do it? Why would they bring something like that here?" Henri looks at him, his face hardening. Because they didn't know what they were dealing with. They thought it was power, something to give them an advantage in battle. But they were wrong. What they unleashed is more powerful than anything they could have imagined. The soldiers fall silent, their minds racing. They've seen the effects of this power, felt it in the air, seen it in the creatures that haunt the battlefield, the whispers, the lights, the unnatural presence that seems to follow them wherever they go. But there's something more. Something they haven't figured out yet. "What do we do with it?" Private Boucher asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Henri looks at the medallion again, his eyes narrowed. "I don't know yet, but I think we need to find the place it opens. The door, whatever it is, because we need to understand what we're dealing with before it's too late." And just like that, the tension in the air thickens. There's no going back. The door that Henri speaks of is not a metaphor. It's real. It's out there, hidden in the ruins of Verdun, waiting to be found. But what lies behind it? What will they find if they open it? As the soldiers sit in the dim glow of their campfire, the questions keep swirling in their minds. But there are no answers, just more mysteries, more things they don't understand. And the one thing they do understand is that they're not alone. They never were. And whatever is out there, whatever has been waiting, it knows they're coming. Henri's words are now a weight they can't escape, pressing down on them with every passing moment. They have to find the door. They have to know what's on the other side. But the question still remains. Can they handle what they will uncover? Or is the truth more terrifying than they could ever imagine? The night is far from over, and the deeper they go, the closer they get to something they might never be able to escape. The fire crackles and pops in the darkness, casting fleeting shadows on the faces of the soldiers, their eyes haunted by the weight of Henri's revelation. The medallion lies in the center of their camp, its ancient symbols glowing faintly in the flickering light. It seems almost alive, pulsing with a power that none of them can fully understand. But they all feel it, the pull, the call, as though it's beckoning them forward. "We need to find it," Henri says, his voice steady despite the terror that grips his heart. "The place it opens. The door. Whatever it is, we need to get there before it's too late. Before whatever's behind it breaks free." The soldiers look at one another, unsure whether to follow him or turn away. But deep down, they know. They've seen too much. They can't walk away now. Not after everything. The battlefield, Verdun, it's not just a place of war. It's a place of something much older, much darker than anything they could have imagined. And if they are to survive, if they are to stop the nightmare from consuming them all, they have to face whatever's waiting on the other side of that door. The decision is made. They will search. The following days are a blur of confusion, fear, and relentless pursuit. The soldiers scour the landscape, revisiting the ruins, the craters, the places where they had once fought. Each step feels like a descent deeper into the unknown, as though they are peeling back the layers of time itself. Every corner, every shadow feels wrong. It's as if the land itself is watching them, waiting. "Keep moving," Henri commands, his voice hard and focused. "We'll find it. We have to." But the further they go, the more the battlefield begins to distort. The air grows colder, and the land itself seems to shift beneath their feet, warping and twisting as though reality itself is beginning to break apart. The whispers grow louder again, swirling in the air around them, filling their ears with incomprehensible words. The soldiers' eyes dart nervously around them, their senses stretched thin, as if they're being stalked by something they can't see. One evening, as they move deeper into the ruins of an old fort, something happens. It's subtle at first, a shift in the air, a flicker of movement in the corner of their eyes, but then it becomes undeniable. A figure. At first they think it's one of their own, perhaps a lost soldier, but as they approach they realize with horror that this figure is not like them. The figure is tall, gaunt, its body unnaturally thin, almost skeletal. Its face is a blur, the features shifting and flickering as if it's not quite solid, not quite real. But what's most disturbing is its eyes. They are hollow, black voids that seem to pull in all the light around them, drawing the soldiers into them, pulling them in like moths to a flame. The soldiers freeze, staring at the figure. It doesn't move, doesn't speak. It just stands there, watching them with those empty eyes, its presence heavy in the air. "Is it one of them?" Private Boucher whispers, his voice trembling with fear. Henri's eyes narrow, his mind racing. He can feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. "It's not one of us," he mutters. "It's not human." But then, just as quickly as it appeared, the figure begins to fade, its body dissolving into the fog, as though it was never there. The soldiers blink, their breaths catching in their throats. They turn to one another, the questions unspoken but hanging in the air. Was that real? One soldier asks, his voice barely more than a whisper. Henri doesn't answer immediately. His eyes are fixed on the spot where the figure had stood, a cold dread settling in his chest. It was real, he says finally. But it's not the only one. There are more of them out there, watching us, waiting. The men exchange nervous glances, but they say nothing. What is out there, hiding in the mist? And how much longer can they continue this search without falling victim to whatever it is that's stalking them? Their investigation grows more desperate with each passing hour. Every time they think they've found something, a clue, a piece of evidence, something slips away, leaving them with more questions than answers. The medallion is still in Henry's possession, its symbols now burned into his memory. But he knows that it's not enough. Not by itself. They need more. That night, as they camp beneath the jagged remains of a shattered wall, the tension reaches a boiling point. The soldiers can't sleep. They toss and turn in their blankets, restless, their minds consumed by the horrors they've seen and the terror of what might be coming. Suddenly, a scream pierces the night. It's not the scream of a soldier in pain, not the scream of a man fighting for his life. No, this is something different. This scream is primal, filled with a pure, unfiltered terror. The soldiers leap to their feet, their hearts pounding in their chests as they scramble for their weapons. "Boucher!" Henri shouts, his voice frantic. "Where's Boucher?" But Boucher is nowhere to be found. His blanket is empty, his rifle gone. Panic spreads like wildfire through the camp. The soldiers call out his name, their voices frantic, but there is no response. The only sound is the distant, eerie howl that echoes through the night, a sound like no living thing could make. It's coming from somewhere deep in the ruins, somewhere they haven't searched yet, somewhere they have to go. Henri leads the charge, his mind a whirlwind of fear and determination. The men follow him, their footsteps heavy and filled with dread as they race toward the source of the scream. And then they find it. It's Boucher, but it's not Boucher as they knew him. The soldier's body is sprawled on the ground, his eyes wide and unblinking, his mouth frozen in a silent scream. His body is contorted, twisted in unnatural ways, as if something had broken him from the inside out. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is what's standing over him. A creature, twisted and horrifying, its body made of shifting, writhing shadows. Its face is a grotesque mask of agony, and its eyes, those same hollow, empty eyes, glow with an unearthly light. The creature tilts its head, as though it's studying the soldiers, waiting for them to make the next move. Henri steps forward, his voice steady but filled with fear. "We need to get out of here," he says, his eyes never leaving the creature. "Now." But the creature doesn't move. It doesn't attack. It simply stands there, its form shifting, flickering in and out of focus, as though it exists on the edge of reality itself. And then, in a voice like a distant echo, it speaks. "You're too late," it says, its words sending a chill down the soldiers' spines. The door is open. The air is thick with dread as the soldiers stand frozen, the horrific scene before them too surreal to process. The creature, this thing, standing over the body of Private Boucher, does not belong in the world they know. It flickers, its form shifting like smoke, as though it's not truly a part of this reality. And yet, here it is, its dark presence cutting through the night like a knife. The soldiers stare at the creature, the words it spoke still echoing in their minds. The door is open. What does that mean? What door? Henri stands at the front, his mind racing as he takes in the horrific sight. He should feel fear, more fear than he's ever known, but instead, there's something else in his chest. A deep, hollow understanding that this moment has been inevitable. The ritual, the medallion, the voices in the wind, they were all leading here, to this exact point. But what does it want? Why is it here? He steps forward cautiously, his hand gripping his rifle tightly. The others hesitate behind him, their eyes wide with terror, the realization sinking in that they are no longer just fighting for survival. They are facing something that has no rules, no boundaries, something that exists between life and death, beyond the comprehension of any man. "I don't understand," whispers Private Laurent, his voice quivering as he stares at the creature. "What is it?" Henri shakes his head, his eyes locked on the entity before them. "I don't know, but I know one thing. It's not alone." As if on cue, the ground beneath their feet begins to tremble. It's subtle at first, a soft vibration that they feel more than hear, but then it grows stronger. The earth shakes violently, and a deep rumbling fills the air, as if something ancient is awakening beneath the soil. The creature before them reacts, its form warping and distorting as the tremors intensify. Then, the ground splits. Cracks form in the earth, jagged and deep, as though the very fabric of reality is being torn apart. From the depths of the split, a sickly green light begins to seep out, casting an eerie glow across the soldiers' faces. They stumble backward, the air thick with panic. "What is this?" someone gasps, their voice filled with a mix of horror and disbelief. "What's happening?" Henri's heart races. This is it. The door. It's not just some metaphorical door, it's a literal breach, a rift between the worlds of the living and the dead. And the creature standing before them? It's a sentinel, guarding the opening. "I've seen this before," Henri murmurs, his voice tight. "In the ruins. The ritual, it wasn't just meant to open a door, it was meant to bring them through." The green light from the crack in the ground pulses, growing brighter with every passing second. The soldiers can feel the heat radiating from it, unnatural and intense. The air grows thick with static, and the whispers, those voices they've heard for days, are now deafening, swirling around them in a maddening cacophony. The creature in front of them moves, slowly, deliberately, its form solidifying with each step until it towers over them, blocking their view of the glowing rift. Its hollow eyes burn with an unholy light, and it speaks again, its voice a low, rumbling growl that vibrates through their very bones. "The door is open," it repeats, its voice echoing through the soldiers' minds. "And you are too late." Henri's heart skips a beat. Too late for what? The creature's form flickers again, and then, just as suddenly, it lunges forward, its arm outstretched toward them. The soldiers can't move fast enough. The air around them grows thick, suffocating, as if the world itself is trying to crush them under its weight. The first soldier, Corporal Gerard, tries to raise his rifle, but his hands are shaking uncontrollably. The creature's hand strikes him, sending him flying backward as if he were nothing more than a rag doll. He crashes to the ground, unconscious or worse. "Gerard!" Henri yells, but his voice is swallowed by the intense buzzing in his ears. His instincts scream at him to run, to leave this place, but his feet won't move. The sheer weight of the supernatural force bearing down on them holds him in place. The creature stands motionless, its arms still outstretched toward the soldiers as the green light from the rift behind it intensifies. The earth shakes again, the cracks spreading wider, the light blinding. Henri can see shapes moving within the light, shadows, figures, half-formed beings. "Get out!" Henri shouts, the words finally breaking free. "Get to the trees! Move!" The soldiers snap into motion, but it's too late. From the rift, something begins to emerge. At first, it's just a silhouette, a dark mass rising from the earth, but as it pulls itself free from the depths, its form becomes clearer, It's enormous, towering, its limbs twisted and wrong, its face a grotesque mask of flesh and bone, more horror than man. Its eyes burn with an unnatural fire, as though they were forged in the very depths of hell. And then, another one follows, and another, until the soldiers are surrounded by monstrous shapes, each one more horrific than the last. "Run!" Henri screams again, his voice a roar of desperation, but no one moves. They can't. The creatures are upon them, crawling from the rift, their grotesque bodies twisting and warping with every step. The soldiers raise their rifles, but the bullets do nothing. The creatures are unstoppable, their very presence warping the fabric of the world around them. A sudden, violent force knocks Henri to the ground. His vision spins, his body throbs with pain. He struggles to move, to stand, but his limbs are heavy, as though weighed down by the sheer weight of the creature's presence. The air is thick with a suffocating, otherworldly energy that presses in on him, crushing him with its force. He looks up. The last thing he sees before darkness claims him is the towering figure of the creature, standing above him, its hollow eyes burning into his soul. "You were too late," it says one final time. And then everything goes black. The world feels like it's closing in. Henri's body aches as he tries to regain his bearings, but the ground beneath him shifts, the world spinning like a sickening whirlpool, pulling him deeper into darkness. He blinks, trying to focus, but the air around him is thick, heavy with something that doesn't belong. The creatures, those terrible, grotesque entities that poured from the rift, loom above him, their hollow eyes fixed on him with unblinking intensity. He can't move. His limbs are sluggish, like they've been drained of all strength. The weight of the air around him is suffocating, like being trapped beneath a mountain. It's as if the very essence of reality has shifted, and they've fallen into some nightmare that has no end, no escape. He forces himself to push against the earth, his fingers digging into the dirt as he tries to stand. But as his eyes focus, he realizes he's not alone. His comrades, his brothers in arms, are scattered around him, some unconscious, others struggling against the same oppressive force. They too seem to be trapped in the same terrifying paralysis. But the creatures? They are not moving. Not yet. Henri's breath comes in shallow, desperate gasps. He knows they don't have much time. The rift that tore open the very fabric of reality is still wide, its green glow pulsing ominously. From the depths of the rift, more figures begin to emerge. Some humanoid, others monstrous beyond recognition. The ground trembles again, as if something even larger is on the verge of coming through. He forces himself to his knees, his gaze fixed on the growing army of horrors. The whispers return, louder this time, as if the voices are inside his head, screaming at him in tongues he can't understand. The very air vibrates with their call, a buzzing hum that's impossible to escape. "Henri! Henri, get up!" It's Laurent's voice, weak but there. Henri turns, seeing Laurent struggling to his feet, his face pale and drenched in sweat. His eyes are wide with panic, and he looks around frantically like he's trying to understand what's happening. "They're coming through the rift!" Laurent gasps, his voice breaking. "They're here! Before he can finish, one of the creatures steps forward, its body like liquid shadow, stretching unnaturally as it approaches. Laurent freezes, his face contorting with fear. He raises his rifle, his hands shaking, but the creature doesn't flinch. It moves toward him with a steady, horrifying certainty, its hollow eyes locked on his. Henri doesn't think. He moves, grabbing Laurent and yanking him out of the creature's path, just as the beast's hand reaches out, its fingers curling with predatory intent. Laurent stumbles, nearly falling, but Henri holds him up, his breath ragged. "Run!" Henri yells, his voice hoarse. But the ground shakes again, harder this time, as though the earth itself is buckling under the weight of whatever is trying to break free. But Laurent looks back, his eyes wide with disbelief. Where? There's nowhere to go, Henri. We're surrounded. The realization hits Henri like a punch to the gut. They're trapped. There is no escape. The creatures have surrounded them, closing in from every angle. Their massive forms cast long shadows that seem to stretch for miles, blocking out the light, drowning them in darkness. Their presence is crushing, unavoidable, inevitable. The rift behind them continues to pulse, its sickly green glow growing brighter by the second. Henri's mind races. There's no way they can fight this. They've already tried, and the creatures are impervious to their weapons. Their bullets don't even slow them down. There's no plan, no backup. They are completely alone, and they know it. The horrors they are facing are far beyond any enemy they've encountered in this war. Henri looks to the soldiers still standing, their eyes filled with fear, their hands trembling around their rifles. They, too, realize the truth. This battle is no longer about survival. It's about escape, and they are running out of time. "We need to close the rift," Henri says, the words coming out in a low rasp, almost like a prayer. But even as he speaks, he knows it's too late. The rift can't be closed, not without something far more powerful than anything they can comprehend. Laurent's voice is shaky as he looks at the medallion in Henri's hand. "But we have that. The key. You said it could open the door. Can't it close it too?" Henri's eyes flicker to the medallion, his fingers tightening around it. He's seen the symbols, the markings carved into its surface. He's felt its strange energy. But there's no answer. There's nothing to tell him how to reverse what has been set into motion. "We don't know how it works," Henri says softly. "And even if we did, I don't think we have enough time." As he speaks, the first of the creatures lunges forward, its body rippling like liquid shadow, and the air fills with a deafening, distorted roar. The soldiers raise their rifles, firing in desperate unison, but the bullets do nothing. The creature shrieks, a noise that echoes through the landscape like a banshee's wail, and a wave of oppressive force slams into the soldiers, knocking them back, sending them sprawling to the ground. Henri hits the earth hard, the breath knocked out of him. The air around him grows cold, bitterly cold, and his limbs feel heavy as if the very essence of life is being drained from him. He struggles to move, to rise, but something inside him tells him it's pointless. They're already too far gone. The rift is open. The creatures are free, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. But just as all seems lost, something else happens. A crack, a noise so faint it's almost imperceptible, but it's there. The earth trembles again, but this time it's different. The rift, that sickly green light, flickers. For a moment the creatures pause, as if they too feel it. This shift in the air, this strange disruption in the very fabric of their reality. Henri looks up, his eyes narrowing. In the distance, beyond the glowing rift, there's a figure. A person, moving through the fog, their silhouette barely visible against the swirling darkness. The soldiers are too far gone to notice, too lost in their panic. But Henri sees them. And in that moment, he realizes. There's still a chance, a slim one, but a chance nonetheless. It's not over. Not yet. The door hasn't fully opened, and there is still one last thing they can try. The air crackles with an energy that can't be explained, the oppressive weight of the rift growing heavier by the second. Henri's heart pounds in his chest as he struggles to rise, his body aching and his breath shallow. The soldiers around him are disoriented, their minds clouded with panic and fear. But there is something else. A flicker of hope just beyond their grasp. A faint figure in the distance, moving through the thick fog, cutting through the shadows like a beacon of light in a nightmare. Henri doesn't know who it is. But he knows one thing. They are the key. There is still a chance. The creatures surrounding them pause, their grotesque forms writhing with anticipation. The rift behind them continues to pulse, the green light growing more intense, like the heartbeat of some ancient, malevolent force. But for a moment, everything stills. The creatures are watching, waiting. The soldiers, too, fall silent, straining to hear something, anything, that could explain what's happening. "Who is that?" Laurent whispers, his voice trembling. Henri's eyes narrow. "I don't know. But we need to get to them." The creatures seem to sense the shift in the air, their eyes glowing brighter, more intense. The ground trembles beneath their feet again, but this time it's not just the creatures that feel the disturbance. It's the earth itself, like it's alive, reacting to something. Henri's mind races. He knows what's happening. The ritual, the key, the rift, it's all coming to a head. This is the final moment, and if they don't act now, they're lost. But just as Henri makes to move forward, a voice echoes in the air. Low, familiar, but far too distant to be real. "You're too late." The voice is filled with an unnatural, cold certainty. The soldiers freeze, their blood running cold. Henri turns to face the source of the voice, his heart skipping a beat as he realizes. It's not one of the creatures. It's someone else. Someone who has been here all along. Standing in front of him, barely visible through the fog, is a man. Tall, gaunt, and dressed in the tattered uniform of an officer. His face is hidden beneath a dark, weathered cap, but Henri recognizes him instantly. It's Lieutenant Marchand, a man who had disappeared during the early days of the war, presumed dead. But here he is, alive? Or something else? Henri's breath catches in his throat. "Marchand?" he asks, his voice thick with disbelief. How are you here?" The lieutenant tilts his head, a strange, almost detached smile curling at the corners of his lips. "You shouldn't have come," he says quietly, stepping closer. "This was never meant to be disturbed. You were never meant to know." Henri takes a step back, his hand instinctively gripping his rifle, but the lieutenant doesn't flinch. "What do you mean?" Henri demands. "What have you done? What have you unleashed?" Marchand's smile widens, but it's not a comforting sight. It's the smile of someone who knows exactly what is about to happen. "What we unleashed," he repeats softly. "Number what? You've unleashed! The ritual was never meant to be undone. Not by soldiers, not by anyone." Henri's mind races, trying to understand. The pieces are falling into place, but the picture is still incomplete. You were part of it, weren't you? The ritual. You knew all along, didn't you?" Marchand nods slowly, his eyes gleaming with something ancient, something dark. "I didn't have a choice. None of us did. We were bound to it, just as you are now." Henri's heart sinks. Bound to it? What does that mean? Marchand's voice drops to a whisper, almost as though he's speaking to himself. "The battlefield." Verdun. It was chosen long ago. This place, this cursed land, was meant to be a doorway. The ritual opened it, but it could never truly be closed. The entities were always waiting, watching. The door was meant to remain shut, but now it will open completely, and there is no going back. A wave of understanding washes over Henri. The ritual, the key, the rift. It wasn't just some accident. This place had always been the epicenter of something far older, far darker than anyone could have imagined. They weren't just fighting for their lives. They were fighting for the very fabric of reality itself. "What do you want from us?" Henri asks, his voice tight with fury. "Why are you here?" Marchand's smile fades, his expression becoming cold, detached. "I want nothing from you," he says simply. "I'm already here, I've always been here, and so will you be. Before Henri can respond, the ground shifts beneath them again, this time with a violence that sends the soldiers sprawling. The rift behind Marchand opens wider, the green light now blinding, the air crackling with energy. The creatures around them stir, their movements growing more agitated as the rift continues to widen. Marchand steps back, his gaze fixed on the opening. "It's time," he says, his voice low and resigned. "You can't stop it. None of us ever could." Henri's heart races as he watches the rift, a sickening sense of finality hanging in the air. The creatures are moving toward it, drawn to the power of the opening. The rift is fully open now, and the army of nightmares is ready to pour through. But there's one thing Henri knows for sure. He will not let this happen. Not without a fight. "Everyone move!" he shouts, his voice ringing out across the battlefield. The soldiers, though shaken and exhausted, rally to him. The terror that grips them is palpable, but they have no choice. They must face this, or the world will be lost. Henri races toward the rift, the medallion still in his hand, feeling its weight pull at him. This is it. The final chance. The only way to stop this madness. The ground shakes violently beneath their feet as the first of the creatures begins to step through the rift, its massive form emerging from the glowing light. Henri doesn't hesitate. He reaches forward, his hand gripping the medallion tightly, and presses it against the rift's edge, desperate to close it, to reverse what was done so long ago. For a moment, nothing happens. The creatures continue to spill forth, and the rift grows wider, threatening to swallow them all. But then, a deep, reverberating hum fills the air. The ground quakes beneath Henri's feet, and the light from the rift begins to flicker. The creatures halt, frozen in place, as if something is fighting back. Henri closes his eyes, focusing all his energy on the medallion, on the power it holds. He can feel it now. The pull, the tug, the force that had been buried for centuries. He forces the medallion into the rift, pushing with every ounce of strength he has left. And then, with a deafening roar, the rift begins to close. The creatures scream, their voices piercing through the chaos, but they are drawn back, sucked into the shrinking rift. The green light flickers and dims. Henri holds his breath as the rift begins to close completely. And then, just as quickly as it all began, the battlefield falls silent. The rift is gone, the creatures are gone. But Henri knows deep down that it's not truly over. The door has been closed, for now. But the horrors they faced will never be forgotten. And the battlefield of Verdun will forever be marked by what came through the rift. And the question remains, what else is still waiting out there? The silence that follows is suffocating. The battlefield, once alive with the terrible energy of the rift, is now eerily still. The air feels lighter, the oppressive weight that had crushed their minds lifted, at least for the moment. Henri stands at the center of it all, his eyes scanning the horizon, the echoes of what just transpired still ringing in his ears. The creatures are gone. The rift is closed. But something feels wrong. The calm is too sudden, too unnatural. As the soldiers slowly rise, dusting themselves off and regaining their bearings, a strange sense of unease creeps into the air. It should be over. The horror should be behind them. But Henri knows better than anyone. There are things in this world that don't just disappear. Things that linger long after the battle is won. "We did it," Laurent says quietly, though his voice shakes with uncertainty. "We stopped them." Henri's eyes narrow as he scans the now quiet landscape. The fog still clings to the earth, curling around the remnants of broken trenches and twisted metal. The battlefield, though no longer filled with monsters, feels wrong, like something is hiding just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to strike. But Henri isn't fooled. "No, Laurent," he says, his voice firm. "It's not over. Not by a long shot." The other soldiers look at him, confusion in their eyes. They can feel it, too. The lingering dread, the feeling that something is still out there, watching them. But they're reluctant to admit it. After all, the rift is closed. The creatures are gone. What more could there be? Henri takes a deep breath, trying to steady himself. That rift didn't just open by accident. It wasn't just a doorway. It was a gateway. And whatever we saw coming through it, it's not the end. It's just the beginning. The soldiers fall silent. They're exhausted, their bodies beaten and bruised from days of terror. But Henri knows they can't afford to relax. The entities they faced weren't simply physical creatures. They were manifestations of something far darker, something ancient. "We need to leave," Henri continues, his gaze sharp. "We can't stay here any longer. We don't know what's left behind." A chill runs through the group, the realization sinking in that what they've witnessed isn't a one-time event. Whatever has been unleashed on this land, whatever force they've disturbed, is still out there. The ground may have quieted, but it's far from still. Without another word, they begin to move, stumbling through the ruins of the battlefield, their eyes constantly shifting, searching the shadows. Henri leads the way, the weight of the medallion still heavy in his hand, as though it, too, is aware that the danger hasn't passed. And then, as they reach the edge of the battlefield, it happens again. A flash of light, a flicker, barely noticeable but unmistakable. Henri halts, his heart racing. "Did you see that?" he asks, his voice low and urgent. The soldiers stop, looking around, their rifles gripped tightly in their hands. The distant glow of the rift, once so blinding, now seems like a faint memory. But the lights, those lights, are back. Flickering in the distance, just like they did before, as though they are drawn to something. To them. But these lights aren't the only thing. The ground shakes again, this time more violently than before, the tremors running deep through the earth, making their bones rattle. The air grows cold, unnaturally cold, and the fog thickens, swallowing them in its dense, suffocating grasp. Henri clenches his fists, his knuckles white. "It's not over," he repeats, more to himself than to anyone else. "Whatever was behind that rift, it's still here, and it's not done with us." The soldiers turn, ready to flee, but something stops them. A figure emerges from the mist. Henri's blood runs cold. It's a soldier. At least it looks like one. But the figure is shrouded in shadow, its features indistinct, as though it's made of smoke and dust. The uniform is torn and worn, as though it's been buried for decades, centuries even. And its eyes, those eyes, are hollow, glowing with that same unholy light that the creatures had. The figure steps forward, moving toward them slowly, as if it's walking through thick tar. The soldiers freeze, too afraid to move, too stunned by what they're seeing. The figure raises its arm, as though reaching out for them. Henri's breath catches in his throat. No, not again. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the figure disappears into the fog, leaving nothing but the echo of its presence behind. A cold, oppressive silence follows. "Did anyone else see that?" Boucher asks, his voice shaky. Henri nods, his eyes scanning the fog with unease. "I saw it. We all saw it. This is just the beginning. They're not gone. They're still here, waiting." The soldiers turn to him, their faces drawn with fear. But Henri doesn't need to say more. They all feel it now. The pull, the presence, the feeling that they are not alone. The medallion in his hand burns with a strange, eerie energy, and Henri realizes something he hadn't fully understood before. The ritual may have closed the rift, but the land itself, this cursed battlefield, is still tied to whatever ancient force lies beneath it. The doorway may be closed, but the spirits, the entities that had been awakened, have left their mark. They are still trapped in this land, just waiting for the moment when the door cracks open again. The soldiers begin to move, slowly at first, their steps hesitant, unsure. They know what Henri knows now. They can't stay here. Not anymore. Whatever it is that has been awakened will not rest, and they have to find a way to stop it before it's too late. As they make their way toward the edge of the battlefield, the strange lights flicker again, this time brighter, closer. Henri looks back one last time, the battlefield stretching out before him, the remnants of the war and the horrors they faced still haunting every step they take. The ground beneath them quakes once more. The fog thickens. The whispers return. The door may have been closed, but the battle is far from over. The soldiers move forward through the thickening fog, their steps slow and heavy, the weight of the battlefield pressing down on them. Each one of them is haunted by the same unspoken fear, the truth they've just begun to grasp. The battle may have been fought, the rift closed, but what they're facing now is something far worse. The spirits, the creatures, the ancient forces, they are not gone. Not truly. Henri leads the way, his grip on the medallion tightening as he walks. The eerie green light of the strange phenomenon flickers in the distance, casting unnatural shadows that twist and stretch unnervingly. The fog seems to thicken with every step, smothering them in a heavy, suffocating atmosphere. The air is electric with anticipation, like the stillness before a storm. "Where do we go now?" Boucher asks, his voice filled with dread. "The rift's closed. We've seen them leave. What else is there?" Henri doesn't respond immediately. His mind is racing, sifting through the fragments of knowledge he's gathered over the past days. He thinks back to the Hauntings words of Lieutenant Marchand, the warnings he's heard, the things that were left unsaid. The truth is so much more than they've understood. This land, Verdun, it's not just cursed. It's tied to something ancient, something beyond the veil. "It's not just about the rift," Henri mutters to himself, though the others hear it. "It's about what's been unleashed. It was never just about the creatures. It's the land itself, this place. It's a gateway." Laurent glances at him, his face pale. A gateway to what? Henri's eyes harden as he looks out into the distance, where the last remnants of the green light flicker, and the mist swirls around the old, crumbling fortifications of Verdun. He knows the answer now. He feels it deep in his bones. "To them," Henri says, his voice low, almost a whisper, as if saying it too loudly will shatter the fragile grip on reality they still have. "The spirits that walked this earth long before any of us, the soldiers, the forgotten, they're not just haunting this place, they're trapped here, bound by the land itself." The soldiers fall silent, the weight of Henri's words sinking in. "So, what do we do?" Boucher asks, his voice cracking with the strain of fear. Henri turns back to face them. "We end it. We find the source of it all, the heart of the curse, and destroy it. That's the only way we'll be free. Only then will the spirits, the entities, the creatures, they'll be gone." It's a terrible truth, a terrifying responsibility, but they know Henri is right. It's not enough to close the rift. The land itself, soaked with the blood of untold souls, is a prison, a place where the dead cannot escape. And if they don't destroy what lies at the heart of it all, the land will keep bleeding its horrors into the world. They move together, the soldiers more determined now than ever, despite the dread that weighs down on them. Every step feels like a defiance of the very forces that want to claim them. Henri leads them toward the heart of the battlefield, toward a ruined building, once a command post, now a crumbling monument to the horrors of war. The ground beneath their feet still trembles, as though the earth itself is restless, unwilling to let them go. As they approach the building, a familiar sense of foreboding washes over them. The air grows colder, and the whispers, those soft, incomprehensible murmurs, return, filling the air. The ground is unnaturally quiet now, the heavy fog thickening, clinging to their boots as they walk. Then they see it. A door, half buried in rubble, etched with strange symbols. The markings are identical to the ones on the medallion. Henri's heart races, the truth finally dawning on him. This was it, the door that had been sealed long ago, the one that would allow the spirits and entities to pass through, the one that had been disturbed. He steps forward, his hand shaking, as he touches the door. The moment his fingers make contact, the ground beneath them shifts violently, and the whispering grows louder, like 100 voices calling out in unison. The air seems to hum with dark energy. The creatures, they're here. They've always been here, waiting for this moment. Suddenly, the door creaks open. Henri's breath catches in his throat. He wants to turn back. He wants to run. But he knows that's not an option. Not anymore. They've come this far, and there's no going back. "We do this together," Henri says, his voice steady. He turns to face his comrades, their faces pale but resolute. "We close it once and for all." With a final glance at each other, the soldiers move into the doorway. Inside, the room is a cavernous chamber, the air thick with dust and the stench of something ancient and decayed. The walls are lined with more of the strange symbols they've seen etched onto the medallion, glowing faintly in the dark, their energy pulsing through the air. At the center of the room is a stone altar, weathered with age, covered in the remnants of something long dead. Bones, tattered remnants of clothing, and what looks like bloodstains, dried and blackened. The sense of malevolent power in this place is overwhelming. Henri approaches the altar, his steps slow, his heart pounding in his chest. He can feel the medallion burning against his skin, its power growing stronger with each step he takes. It's as if the very air is charged with an unholy energy, the room closing in on him. The voices grow louder, no longer whispers but screams, anguished wails of soldiers long since lost to time. And then he sees it. At the center of the altar, buried deep in the stone, is a pulsating dark orb, radiating the same green light that had come from the rift. It is the source of all the horrors, the power that has kept the spirits trapped here, bound to the land, unable to escape. Henri knows what he must do. He raises the medallion above the orb, and as his hand closes around it, a sudden, violent jolt runs through his body. The orb pulses in response, and the ground beneath them shakes as if trying to swallow them whole. The air grows cold, impossibly cold. His hands tremble, but he doesn't stop. He knows this is the only chance they have to end it. With a final desperate cry, Henri presses the medallion against the orb. There is a blinding flash of light, and for a moment, time itself seems to freeze. The room erupts in a violent explosion of energy. The ground cracks open, the walls shatter, and the roar of countless spirits fills the air, deafening and terrifying. The light from the orb expands, blinding them all, pulling them toward the darkness. And then, suddenly, it's over. The light dims, the ground stops shaking, the voices fade into nothingness. Henri opens his eyes, gasping for breath. The air is still. The oppressive energy is gone. The orb is no longer there. The altar is destroyed, reduced to rubble, and the strange symbols are now faded, their glow gone. The soldiers stand in stunned silence, unsure if they've just witnessed a miracle or if they've simply been freed from an unimaginable nightmare. "We did it," Laurent breathes, his voice filled with awe and disbelief. Henri looks around, his body still shaking with the adrenaline of what they've just done. It's not over. They know it. But for now, for this brief moment, they have won. They have closed the door. They have stopped the endless cycle of horror that haunted Verdun. But in the back of Henri's mind, a thought lingers. The land has been cleansed, for now. But something tells him that these horrors are far from over. They've only pushed them back. Because the door, once opened, will always find a way to crack open again. The ruins of Verdun stand silent around them, the fog lifting as the oppressive energy of the battlefield begins to dissipate. The ground is still, the unnatural hum in the air gone, leaving only the faint rustle of wind through broken walls and the distant cries of birds. For the first time in days, Henri feels the weight on his chest lift. He takes a deep breath, savoring the clarity of the air around him. The land has been purged, for now. The terrible forces that had once threatened to consume them have been pushed back. But there's no celebration, no triumphant cries. Instead, the soldiers stand in stunned silence, their gazes fixed on the destruction they've caused, the destruction they've survived. It's as though, even though the battle has been won, the war is still far from over. Henri's fingers lightly brush against the remnants of the altar, now reduced to rubble. The orb is gone, the last flicker of its sickly green light snuffed out as though it had never been. But the air around them still feels heavy, as if the land itself is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. "I don't know if we've done the right thing," Henri says quietly, his voice breaking the stillness. He looks up at his comrades, their faces as worn as his own. "The battle is over, but the truth is more complicated than we ever imagined." Laurent steps forward, his face pale but resolute. "We had no choice, Henri. We did what had to be done. That thing we saw, the ritual, the rift, none of it should have happened. The land itself was cursed." Henri nods slowly, but a dark thought nags at him, one he can't shake. "But what if it's not over? What if the door is just waiting for the next time it cracks open?" Boucher, who had been silent until now, looks up. His eyes are heavy with exhaustion, but there's a quiet resolve in them. "I don't know what's out there, Henri. But I do know one thing. We've fought through hell, and we've won. We've stopped them." Henri looks at his comrades, and for the first time, he feels the weight of their collective experience. They've seen things no one should ever have to witness. They've faced the darkness and lived to tell the tale. But the questions still linger. What if the land is never truly free of what lies beneath? What if the forces they've unleashed, whatever they are, still haunt this place, waiting to return? "We may have stopped them this time," Henri says, his voice steady but filled with quiet conviction. "But I don't think we've seen the last of them." For a long moment, no one speaks. The soldiers, tired and broken, look around them at the desolate landscape. The fog is still lifting, the sky clearing. The battlefield that had been a place of endless suffering is now quiet, almost peaceful. But Henri knows better. The land is scarred, its wounds deep, and those scars are not so easily healed. "We'll have to live with this," Henri continues softly. "What we did here, it will stay with us. But maybe we've given the world a little more time. Maybe we've bought the world some peace, if only for a while." Laurent steps forward, placing a hand on Henri's shoulder. "We'll carry it with us. We'll remember. And if this happens again, we'll know what to do." Henri nods, grateful for the quiet support, but his mind drifts back to the haunting image of the rift, the terrifying creatures emerging, the ancient powers still at play. The medallion in his hand feels heavier than it should, as though the very artifact he used to close the door still carries some part of the curse with it. The question of if the door will open again is now just a matter of when. They stand there for a while longer, the silence growing deeper, more profound. The soldiers have no more words for the moment. There is no victory dance, no songs of glory, just the quiet acknowledgement that they've survived, and that the war they fought wasn't just against men, but against something far older, far darker, something beyond their understanding. Henri looks back at the ruined landscape, the remnants of the battlefield now starkly illuminated by the rising sun. For the first time in what feels like forever, the light seems genuine. The war, for now, is over. The forces that had haunted Verdun have been sealed away. But Henri can't shake the feeling that something still watches, waiting. As the soldiers begin to move, their steps slow, their faces drawn but determined, Henri holds on to one final thought. Some secrets are never fully buried. Some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed. The creatures, the spirits, the ancient entities, they will always find a way. And if they ever return, Henri and his comrades will be ready. For now the battle is over. But the war, it's far from finished. As the soldiers move further away from the cursed land of Verdun, the mist slowly begins to lift, revealing the clear blue sky above. The battlefield, once alive with horrors and chaos, now appears strangely quiet, like a deep, almost unnatural calm has settled over it. But the soldiers know better. The peace they see before them is not the kind of peace that comes after a battle has been won. It's the quiet of something far darker, lying just beneath the surface, waiting. Henri's footsteps are heavy as he walks, the weight of everything they've seen and done pressing down on him. His hand grips the medallion, still warm in his palm, a reminder of the terrible force they've faced and the price they've paid. The battle may be over, but the war they fought wasn't one with clear boundaries, and the lines between the living and the dead are still blurred. "We made it," Laurent says softly, his voice a mix of disbelief and relief. Henri doesn't answer immediately. His mind is too full of the questions that remain unanswered, the questions about what they've seen, what they've uncovered, and what still lurks beneath the earth. What will happen next? Is this truly the end? Or have they merely delayed something far worse? The soldiers walk in silence, their eyes scanning the horizon. The land of Verdun is changing, but not in the way Henri hoped. The echoes of the horrors they've faced still ring in their ears, and the figures that stalked them through the fog are still fresh in their memories. But for now, at least, they are free. Henri looks over his shoulder at the distant battlefield, and a shiver runs through him. The door they sealed, the one that led to the other side, is closed. But there's one thing Henri knows deep down. Some doors, once opened, can never truly be sealed. They can only be hidden for a time. A shadow passes over him. He turns his head. The land behind them is quiet, too quiet. The horror may be gone, but the land itself, Verdun, will never be the same. It will always be haunted by what it has seen and by what it has kept buried. For as much as they wish to walk away and forget, Henri knows the truth. Some things will always remain, lurking just beyond sight, watching, waiting. "We're not the same men who walked into that battlefield," Henri says, his voice steady but filled with an undeniable weight. "None of us are." "No," Boucher agrees quietly, his eyes scanning the horizon. "We're not." And with those words, the soldiers keep walking into a future forever shaped by the darkness they've encountered. They know that no matter where they go from here, what they've faced, what they've witnessed, will never truly leave them. The land of Verdun, the creatures, the spirits, the horrors, they are all a part of their story now. The world they return to will never be the same, and neither will they. Henri's gaze hardens as he looks ahead, his steps resolute. They may have closed the door for now, but the battle was never just about fighting what they could see. It was about something deeper, something far older than they could comprehend. The forces of darkness, the spirits of the past, will always find a way to break free. And when they do, the soldiers of Verdun will be ready. As they disappear into the distance, the faintest trace of the fog clings to the battlefield, lingering like a memory too painful to forget. But the truth is undeniable. The door may be closed, but the darkness will always be there, waiting for the moment when the door cracks open again. Some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed. Thank you for joining us on this chilling and unforgettable journey into the heart of Verdun. The stories of the soldiers, the spirits, and the ancient forces that plagued this cursed land have come to a close. For now. But remember, the horrors of the past are never truly gone. They linger in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to return. If you found this story haunting and thought-provoking, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any future journeys into the unknown. Leave your thoughts and theories in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. And if you enjoy stories like this, continue joining us as we explore more tales from the darkest corners of history. Thank you for being a part of this journey. And always remember, some doors should never be opened, because once they are, there's no going back. See you next time.